he attracts the likes of Michelle Obama, Tom Holland, Jennifer Lopez, I think you wrote in your piece, is a huge fan of his.
Yeah. And he never misses an opportunity. Jay never misses an opportunity to remind people that he was a monk for 3 years.
How can I lie my way to the top? Jay Shetty did it. I don't need to be authentic. I can steal other people's ideas. I can claim to be this expert when I'm not. I can sell people $1,000 courses that are full of shit.
In your own life, you try your best not to lie.
Well, lying almost killed me, I would say, basically. So. David.
Hello, Mike.
What a pleasure it is to be here with you again.
Likewise.
So today on this episode, we are talking about Jay Shetty and his recent expose in the Guardian newspaper. It was a huge story. So as I understand it, Jay Shetty was writing a new book. His agency reached out to the Guardian to do a piece on his new book. And the journalist who was hired to do it started following him around and being like, wow, this guy is not who he says he is. And so rather than it being this like big promotional piece, the guy basically like exposed him for all his bullshit.
So I've actually never heard of Jay Shetty before. What do I need to know about him?
So maybe we'll hear it a little bit in the story, but probably try to cut those parts out to save us time. So, and maybe just to back up a wee bit, we want to explore the kind of the fake, there's a lovely term, I think called McMindfulness. Okay. And so it's just like a saying about the marketization, the commodification, the sort of ego-driven Western, I guess, marketization of everything. Okay. And I'm not sort of like complaining that that's a bad thing or whatever. I'm just sort of saying, so there's this saying McMindfulness. So like mindfulness became this sort of commodity or whatever. And then many people know, there's all these apps for meditation. There's Headspace, there's Calm, which Jay Shetty is like the chief happiness officer of. And so there's all these sort of big, popularizations of mental health products and mindfulness products. And what inevitably happens is they lose their integrity not always, but they lose their integrity as they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Or they never had integrity to start with. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Good point. And so Jay Shetty, I'm not sure how it all happened exactly, but he was a corporate social media guy. So he was training executives how to produce social media content or something like that. And then he just started getting really popular with his own content. And this was sort of in the time where Facebook was really pumping its video platform. So he benefited from that. And he just sort of got, he does produce good content. The whole point of this is that he claimed to be something that he was not. And he also stole intellectual property from lots of people and never credited them for it. So which we'll probably listen to a little bit in here. And so I think the essence of all of this is, or from my perspective, an important thing for us to discuss is, one, be careful be aware that the people you look up to for moral, ethical, spiritual guidance are human beings and they're not perfect. And they often are putting on an act, which this guy clearly was. And to notice in yourself, and this is always what we're trying to bring people back to, the capacity for self-deception and sort of ego grandiosity. And clearly Jay Shetty got really wrapped up in this and carried away with, I'm so great, I'm this, I'm that, I'll just steal people's ideas and present them as my own and claim to be this special, great person. And he interviewed Obama. He interviewed, I think, like Oprah. He interviewed Joe Biden. Like, this guy was like huge. Yeah. Claiming to sort of be this mental health guy, no credentials in mental health. He lied about what he did in university. So the whole expose is quite interesting. And I'm going to toot my own horn a wee little bit. He always rubbed me the wrong way. There was always something about him, listening to him. It just seems so contrived and fake. And
why? Yeah, okay, so just to back up. So Jay Shetty is like a mental health public intellectual. He sort of claims to be a monk. Says, what does he call himself? Like something monk. I can't remember. Yeah. Okay. Became very popular. Yeah. Big following online. different social media platforms,
massive following,
massive. Okay, access to like
celebrities and
political leaders, giving lots of advice about how to live a good life, wellness. So you're saying, so all that sounds good. The flip side is one, Mike, he's part of this McMindfulness. So like you said, the commodification of mental health, wellness products, the cheapening of really important mental health insights for the purposes of profit and selling things in a sort of a degraded form. So that's one issue you have. And then the second is, well, his actual life is inconsistent with the principles that he talks about publicly.
Correct.
So I guess there's like two issues on the table we could chat about. And depending on where you want to go and where the video we want to talk about goes is, like, what is McMindfulness? Why is it a problem? How do we ensure that sort of the mental health insights and products and people we go to for is not sort of a cheapened form? We're actually getting meaningful things that are actually, we could do that. Or the second one we could look at is that question. And we had this discussion a few weeks ago about what happens when these gurus are exposed for being, like you rightly said, flawed humans. Like Shetty is talking about X, Y, and Z in his own private life. He's not doing that. He's talking about being honest and truthful, meanwhile he's stealing other people's ideas, which is cheating and lying. What do we do then? Like, should we throw Jay Shetty's ideas out the door? Because he's not practicing his own principles. Do we care? Like, even if his principles are right, should we care that he's not living up to those? Does that matter for us as people just looking for good insight? So I guess depending on where you want to go, maybe there's sort of two topics we could explore.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I want to expand on the second one because we talked about Huberman before, and if he's deceitful in his personal life, does that mean his academic work isn't as trustworthy? Where I think the Jay Shetty thing is very different from that is that Jay Shetty claimed to have certain credentials that he did not have.
Okay.
Then he has this online university thing that he claimed was associated to and accredited, but not so much by, that it was recognized by these higher ed institutions in the UK. And in the investigation, the guy figured out that was total bullshit. And he had it written on his website. He was charging thousands of pounds for his program, saying that you basically get a master's degree out of this and you can go to university and they'll give you credit for a bunch of it. So his deception and shit went way deeper.
Okay.
And perhaps, I don't know if it's important, but let's just throw out the disclaimer. These are our opinions. We're based on the news reports in The Guardian and these other ones that we'll watch. He's fighting them, obviously, but there's some really damning evidence against him. So let's watch a little CoffeeZilla here, who I really like. I think I don't know why he started this other channel, Voidzilla, which I don't quite get the difference, but he has millions of followers on his other channel. He's really good. He's one of YouTube's top sort of investigative journalists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today we're doing something a little different. We're interviewing the author of an expose on Jay Shetty. He's the host of the world's #1 mental health podcast. You might not know about him, but he's pretty important. He's interviewed the president about mental health. The White House has mentioned him multiple times. And this author in The Guardian wrote an article called Uncovering the Higher Truth of Jay Shetty by John McDermott. It's a quite captivating expose, well-researched, and today we talk to the author about who this guy is and what he's selling. John, let's start off. Jay's a big figure. I don't know if a lot of people in my audience necessarily are aware of who he is. He's kind of a self-proclaimed guru. He says he went to go live as a monk, for a while. Can you explain his rise to fame, his appeal, and how he's using it now to sell products?
His rise to fame really came initially from Facebook. There was that period in kind of the mid 2010s when Facebook was really trying to position itself as a competitor to YouTube. And I don't know, I imagine you and your contemporaries might be aware of this, but Facebook was forging these really lucrative ad revenue partnerships with video creators to try to get them to create exclusively on the Facebook platform. And that Jay was one of those people. He was featured very heavily within the newsfeed. The algorithm was bumping his videos. And that's where he initially kind of garnered his fame with a general audience. As for his story, He lived as a monk for 3 years, supposedly in India for a large amount of that time, which is covered in the article. And then afterwards, he leaves. He takes a job at Accenture. At Accenture, he starts doing kind of corporate mindfulness, kind of bringing in Eastern spiritualism and meditation into the workplace. And from there, he catches the eye of Arianna Huffington. He goes to work for the Huffington Post. He hosts a live streaming show there, realizes he doesn't really need the Huffington Post. He can do it on his own. And then he goes to Facebook, and then things really start blowing up for him.
Anyway, any thoughts, anything you think we need to add from what we've watched so far?
No. So just that was sort of a general background of who he is. I'm wondering what the journalist finds about his life and if that should impact our assessment of what Jay Shetty has to offer for mental health practices.
Okay, let's.
Now he really is one of the number one podcasts in the world. I don't know if you'd call him mental health, but he attracts the likes of Michelle Obama, Tom Holland, Jennifer Lopez. I think you wrote in your piece is a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
So he's got this.
So just my impression, right? I'm already now. Okay. So I've been primed to be skeptical of Jay Shetty just based on our conversation, not knowing anything about him, never listening to him. But right away, when someone becomes like sort of like embedded within, like, to use the term, the establishment,
sure,
it's like, okay, like, is this actually true Eastern spiritualism? Is this truly about reforming one's life, or is this, no, you're just cozying up to the powerful. You're getting these fancy celebrities. Once Jennifer Lopez, with all due respect to her acting and artistic abilities, do I go to her for mental health insight? Do I respect a podcaster or a mental health guru who has a conversation with celebrities? I get turned off whenever a celebrity goes out of their little area of expertise and starts pontificating about other things. I probably start thinking, okay, maybe what they're saying is true, of course, but I rather spend my time going elsewhere than these individuals. With all due respect to Michelle Obama, I probably won't be going to her for mental health.
No,
insight.
but so
that already has sort of like, oh, okay, maybe. Maybe
we got to clarify.
Wrong.
Hold on, just to clarify, they're not suggesting those people are mental health advocates. He's just saying those people were like clients of Jay's, basically, where like they would go to him for insights, and he was interviewing them, I guess, just about life or something like that. But it wasn't like those people were being touted as, I don't know, people we should take insight from. Although,
So then, okay, so maybe like who would you prefer to listen to? Someone who, there's this critique of psychotherapists that they don't want to deal with the people with the real problems, like real addiction,
schizophrenia,
schizophrenia. Those are like the real stuff. And we had this conversation. Abigail Schreier talks about that. Like the psychologist, I don't know if she's right, says, I'd rather work with the kid who's never going to threaten me and not going to push back than the person. So maybe these celebrity mental health consultants, like maybe that should get our back up right away. Like, do I want to go to a therapist or a mental health expert who
I think he calls himself a coach or something?
Yeah, who they go to celebrities, or someone who's actually in the trenches with some of those people who are really struggling with real things and has results with some of the worst cases of mental illness. I would maybe prefer the latter, someone who's just sort of has a small practice, grassroots, on the ground, working with people that no one else wants to work with. If you work with Jennifer Lopez, that's an amazing, lovely gig, super comfortable. Probably. Right?
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure she has her own struggles. I mean,
I think they're just referencing who the people that he interviewed were. I don't know if he was working with them or not, but I know your point just being of like, I think the superficial surface level, let's all talk about these ideas that everyone knows about, but let's not get into why you can't integrate them into your life. Right. Or why you're really suffering and why it's really hard to help people deal with that kind of stuff. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So let's keep going. And
okay. Anyway, let's go to a little bit of his backstory, maybe.
Sure.
This problem of his backstory is very key to sort of what the thrust of your article's about, right? So for me,
Sure.
I'll tell you, my concern is not with, okay, I present myself as this like guru figure independently of selling products. My problem always comes because it's never just I'm a guru. It's always now I have something to sell you.
Right.
So he's got this backstory of being a monk. Maybe you were about to get to that. What did you find there that was interesting?
Right. So he doesn't have any mental health qualifications, even though talking about these subjects with an air of authority, but no credentials, no qualifications in that realm whatsoever, which is pretty wild that he was able to interview the president of the United States about the administration's mental health initiatives, considering he has no qualifications whatsoever. Oh yeah, he interviewed Biden in the White House. Exclusive one-on-one interview. Yes.
Does the White House not check for credentials?
I am very curious about their vetting process.
So that point for me isn't such a strong critique of Jay Shetty or the White House. No, I mean,
sure.
Lots of journalists go in. Let's just say Jay Shetty was a journalist. They're asking about lots of things. You have different, different journalists going in and asking questions. They have no formal degree, formal training. They're experts in it. Fair. So that maybe that's not.
Yeah, cool. I agree.
Right. So maybe that's not the.
Yeah, I guess
that's not so concerning for me.
No, I think it's the discernment between what we think we're getting out of something based on that thing's presentation of what it offers. So this guy, again, claims to be this guru, sacrificed all these things to reach enlightenment. And now he's come back to the West to share these enlightenment values. And as CoffeeZilla says there, and now buy my $1,000 course to do these things yourself. So his whole act is just reinforcing that whole narrative about himself.
If the Obama or Biden or Trump White Houses used him for building out mental health policy, maybe then we should raise questions about his credentials.
Right.
But just the act of interviewing, what's his role in policy, that doesn't bug me. And also the act of selling, I don't know why. I think I got more triggered with the celebrity stuff than selling a product. Like I'm more interested in, yes, the celebrity thing suggests to me that there's probably not the kind of depth that I personally am looking for. Maybe other people are okay with it. For me, I don't know why it rubs me the wrong way. But the selling of a product also, I mean, he maybe has a family and a mortgage and all those things. He needs to sell things. Voidzilla or CoffeeZilla also is selling a product here. We all are in some ways.
Sort of, but there's a difference between
lying about who you are and then selling that product. Yeah,
but CoffeeZilla is not selling a product. He's just a journalist. So his YouTube channel, I think he does have a Patreon, but he's not pretending to be something he's not and then saying buy my product.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And when it comes to healthcare in some sense, right? That's what mindfulness and mental health is.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what we've deemed it to be. There's tons of regulations around that, right? So I'm regulated. I have all these rules and policies. No false advertising. I have to be very upfront about everything that I am skilled at and trained in and what I can offer people. Mm-hmm. And Jay, what a lot of this exposes is that he just shits on all of that for his own gain.
Right.
And is selling an image of himself that's not real. And so much of all the things we talk about here on our channel here, and this idea of starts with me, is honesty, right? I am this way, and I want to honor that to the best of my ability and to be truthful in my way of going through life. Mm-hmm. And that's an idea that's universal across wisdom traditions, most of them, or at least the ones I'm aware of. And that's how you live a good life. Mm-hmm. So not only,
well, it's the first step.
Yes,
being honest and truthful with yourself,
right? Or that's like the most important step, I think.
Yes.
And this guy's violating all of that, right? And so another aspect of this is just to remind ourselves that we all have the capacity for self-deception. And when we start getting a little bit of fame, it's easy for me to sit here and say, I'm not a multimillionaire therapist flying around the world helping people. And if I was, would I be susceptible to over exaggerating my accomplishments? Maybe. I don't really know. I would hope not, but I just think it's important for us to recognize that we have the capacity to be deceitful too.
Right.
And it's important to look ourselves in the mirror. And therefore, when we look at people like Jay, I think that's partly why I could smell his bullshit. And I'm even hesitant to toot my own horn about that. But there was just always something like, sometimes you just have a sense of people that they're full of it.
And Mike, sorry, and for that, so let's get to his backstory.
Okay,
but I just want to ask you, for me, what bugged me initially without knowing a lot about him, this is so really unfair, is the stuff with the celebrities.
Okay. Yeah.
Not my thing. For you, what was it? What suggested to you that this guy isn't what millions of people might think he is?
Thank you for asking me. Because there was something I thought of earlier that I wanted to mention. So this is maybe a little bit of a shortcoming of mine, although I think generally helpful. I don't know. He just seemed so like too rehearsed, too perfect in a sense, right? He was saying these things, presenting them in such a way, and they were just too, I don't know, I have a really good bullshit detector. So it's just something about the way he was talking about himself and his experiences and insights that just did not seem sincere, like rehearsed, very much rehearsed. But then, then it's when I start noticing this about myself in him, when I would see that, my radar goes off and goes, okay, Mike, what insecurities of yours are coming up here that cause you to judge him this way? So that's always what comes up for me. And this is kind of what I'm asking people to reflect upon is, and so for me, it was like, okay, this guy's super successful in the mindfulness and mental health space. That's what I wish I was super successful at.
So he reminded you of your own
correct. Or
self-perceived
I was sort of like projecting, or I was being triggered by my own insecurities and inadequacies in this guy. So then, when I there's a lovely practice in self-compassion of like, when you see somebody doing a really good job at something you really wish you were really good at, how does that make you feel?
You can have a lot of resentment.
Right. Or sort of ego defensiveness or jealousy or envy or whatever. And so that often comes up for me when I see people really excelling in this space. And I need to
still to this day, like if you, so this isn't just about Jay Shetty, it could be about others, the celebrity mental health consultants.
For sure. It doesn't, and this is a subtlety that's hard to put a finger on, but I notice that is there for me. It doesn't really take hold of me. I don't get sucked into this like resentful, jealous like spiral, but I notice, there's the part of me that wishes I was better at what I do because I like, I strive to be better at that. And here's an example of that. And it depends on my mood, right? If I'm in a bad mood, feeling bad about myself, it'll probably bother me more.
Right.
If I'm feeling okay about myself, then, I can shrug it off and just recognize, there's that part of me that wishes I was better at this. Here's an example of someone who's really good at it. And again, the healthy response is like, okay, what do I need to do in order to close the gap, right? Or move in that direction. So going back to the smelling the shit on Jay Shetty, it was like, something about this guy is not quite there. And then I reflected, okay, what about this is my own insecurities? Maybe I'm a little bit envious. Yeah, maybe there's a bit of that, but there was just something about him. And just quickly, there's this guy, Prince EA, who was a huge YouTuber too, huge on Facebook. He's awesome. And he does these sort of spoken word things, and he's just brilliant. And he is authentic. Like when watching him, you can tell that he's not full of shit. And he's a great example of kind of someone who's congruent with their message and their behavior. So that's what we're aiming at, the congruency as well.
So far, okay. So so far in this conversation, we've raised questions about Jay Shetty as someone we should go to. So the celebrity stuff puts me off. His vibe for you puts you off.
Yeah.
Maybe we're playing out. So let's just entertain the hypothesis that maybe we're playing out like different insecurities we have.
Yes. Yeah.
And what that means is what's still on the table is whether Shetty actually gives bad advice.
Yeah.
We don't know. We haven't gotten there yet in this conversation. Right now, something is bugging us about him for either good or either justified or unjustified reasons. We might be wrong. And, in casting him aside or criticizing him in the way that we have so far. But I think what I would want to know, which would really sort of, help me figure out if this is a useful person, is, okay, what does he say? Is that productive for us? Yes or no? If yes, then I could care less if he actually didn't spend time in India as a monk,
right.
Go for it. If he's giving good advice for those who are really struggling, great. Go lie all you want about your background. Lying is not good. Yeah. I don't want to do it. I don't want to say it's a good thing, but it might be largely irrelevant and something we just need to shrug our shoulders at. And that's on him to correct. He'll sleep with the lies at night and wake up with them. But for us as the external audience, I just want to know, is the quality of the insight useful?
Right. Well,
and you're saying no, like you still,
I'm saying
how far, how would you answer that question?
Yeah. If it's not congruent with the messenger, it doesn't matter if it's good insight because it's just.
So what, why? Who cares? Why care about his personal?
Well, because go on. Sorry.
So this is the same thing with the Huberman stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
although the Huberman stuff is different because it's this congruency of the messenger idea, right? So like it matters because you need to. So if this guy can get up there and lie about his situation, then you can lie to yourself about yours.
Okay.
So
So this is the role model argument. He's not a good role model.
Yeah. Right. And so much of our suffering comes from self-deception. So if I'm following somebody who's lying, then what am I actually learning? Let
me just make this more concrete. This is really interesting. So what if Shetty says to us, we have a session with him. He's like, Mike and Dave, your number one job for the next month is to be as honest with yourself as possible.
Yeah.
You're going to self-deceive. The mind is designed for that. Fight that. Identify it, correct it as quickly as you can. This is going to be a month of truth and honesty. That might be really painful, but it's necessary to move forward. That's probably good advice.
Yep.
What if we then find out that he lies all the time? He didn't spend time in India. He's not X, Y, and Z. Does that make the concrete advice he gave us in that session, in this hypothetical session, not useful? Should we say, okay, well, he's not truthful. We're not going to be truthful either. We know better than that.
Yeah. I don't know if it doesn't make it useful. I think it's just it kind of just contributes to the shadiness of moral virtue. And that's probably annoying in a way, or like, I don't know. It's a good question. And like, I just think as a general rule, we want to be congruent with our words.
Right. And so your ideal mental health expert, consultant, therapist would be someone who gives you good advice. It's useful, it's practical, it makes sense, plus tries their best to live by those very principles.
I would say that is
and
absolutely.
If they're not doing both,
yes,
then in your mind, and they can screw up, they can self-deceive, and then that's not but if they're actively lying constantly, that is like a red flag for you. And you're like, I don't want to go to this person. I'm going to find someone who says the exact same things, but doesn't deceive themselves or me as much. Yes. And at least we can reflect on when they do. So there's two things you're looking for in a sort of a public mental health consultant or intellectual.
Or even in a therapist or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is one of those things that's hard to put your finger on, but you just get it. It's like, this person is who they say they are. And they're admirable because of the way they carry themselves, and that in and of itself is inspiring, right? And that's a really good point. That the messenger matters, not for necessarily undermining the message, but for getting the audience to internalize the message and to make it part of their life. Yeah. So
that's why what Shetty. So far we're assuming everything Shetty says might be great advice.
Yeah.
It's the ability for people to listen to that advice is undermined by his own inability, presumably, according to the accuracy of the reporting, to live by it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because then, so think about it. It's Friday morning and you were told that you should pray and meditate in the morning on Friday morning because that's good for you.
Yeah.
Jay Shetty told me I need to do this, right?
Yeah.
Then the little voice that comes in and be like, no, it's fine. Just like go on YouTube and watch YouTube. And then the other voice is like, well, that's not the right thing to do, right? For you in this moment. Let's be a bit more honest about our reality. Ideally, we do the thing that's healthy for us. But so that's where, like, it's in those little intricate moments in our internal dialogue where honesty is so important. And if we're being taught by some guy who's bullshitting us, then we bullshit ourselves. We're more likely to bullshit ourselves in that moment. I think that's my kind of argument. That's hard to, it's not necessarily true, but no doubt that that's likely to happen at times.
So you're more likely to watch YouTube in the morning when you shouldn't be meditating because, well, my teacher isn't doing this, so what should I?
Something kind of like that. Yeah. And then it's even worse because you're like, well, fuck, who the fuck is this guy? He's lying about all this stuff. And then what does he know?
And then you get some moral then you sort of pump your own tires through that.
Yeah. And then you justify.
And then you're just worse off.
Yeah.
Because you're watching YouTube, not doing what you need
or
to do.
Even worse, it's like, okay, how can I lie my way to the top? Look at Jay Shetty did it. I don't need to be authentic. I can steal other people's ideas. I can claim to be this expert when I'm not. I can sell people $1,000 courses that are full of shit.
Right. And Mike, in your own life, you try your best not to lie.
I do.
Because you've experienced that.
Well, because
lying is a life strategy.
Lying almost killed me, I would say, basically. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am very curious about their vetting process.
There's a certain irony there for a guy without credentials to be asking the president questions about mental health programs in America. There's a great irony there. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, we mentioned that.
I don't think that's not that for me is not so compelling.
Fair.
You should.
He's just adding fuel to he's just poking when he's down with that one, you think? Okay, let's keep going.
And he never misses an opportunity. Jay never misses an opportunity to remind people that he was a monk for 3 years. And typically when he describes this, he says, I was a monk in India and I traveled around a little bit across Europe, but frames it as being primarily in India. So I looked into it and I found ample evidence that he was actually stationed in Watford, which is a city just outside of London for the vast majority of the time that he was a monk, and that he had been in India for just a few months. Jay writes about this on his own blog. He writes about participating in what's called the sabbatical program through the religious organization that he conducted his monkhood from. And the sabbatical program is kind of akin to birthright for people who come from Jewish backgrounds. The sabbatical takes you to India. You visit various holy sites that are relevant to the Krishna consciousness tradition, and you learn more about the faith. But at which point, after a period of several months, you go back to England and you're given the option to live in the ashram, which is the Hindu monastery in Watford or in London. They have one in downtown London as well, and live there. But the program is not stationing you in India for a prolonged period of time. It's a trip.
Now, I find that very interesting because, look, some people might say, what's a couple years, off? Everyone sort of embellishes their background. I think where it gets to be a problem is when these sort of half-truths, lies, exaggerations start stacking up. So one of the things that I found so troubling in your article that I eventually made me want to reach out is when he's selling this program, right? Mm-hmm. Selling this.
So before, do you before we move on, I want to hear what he's about to say. But do you care? Okay, so he didn't spend 3 years in India. He slightly misrepresents it. Do you care about that?
Yes.
Okay. What if he spent 6 months in India?
If he's saying he spent 3 years, then it's terrible.
Right.
It's just so, because I'm also aware of the part of me that wants to accept credibility for something that I'm not worthy of the credibility for.
Hold on, say that again. What do you mean?
So a simple example would be somebody asked me, I have a lot of experience in meditation. I've been meditating for about 10 years. If somebody says something to me like, how much do you meditate? Right? Part of me wants to go, I meditate for an hour a day so I can feel better about myself and present this image of myself to this other person and to benefit from the social credit of that.
Right. Wow. Mike Stroh meditates an hour a day. It's awesome.
And then I get this little boost of self-esteem or something like that. But that's a lie. I don't meditate an hour a day. That's ridiculous.
Right. You meditate 2 hours a day.
Yeah. So, over the decade, I've meditated a lot. What does that average out to? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. And I've been trained and I've done lots of courses or whatever you want to call it. So, but that's what I mean, right? So it's just that like impulse to lie and to over exaggerate our accomplishments, what that does for a little boost of ego gratification or self-esteem. But ultimately it's just not helpful.
Right.
It's not helpful.
Right.
And people do it all the time. And I just think being more honest about it. So if you had said something like, my monk program was 3 years long, and we spent approximately 1 month in India or 6 months, that would be authentic and honest. But he's trying to claim this credit of being a monk for 3 years. And we all know, at least we have an image in our mind of what that means. That's a serious commitment,
right.
And that's serious discipline. And if I'm going to go pay someone thousands of dollars to help me, and I think that they spent 3 years in a cave or whatever, meditating, wow, like I want to learn from that person.
Yeah.
So he's sort of boosting his own image so that we pay him for things that he doesn't deserve.
Right. How much do we care about this India bit? Like, let's say he just went to Watford outside of London in the UK, did some good training, good program, maybe did some time alone and, live that sort of monk life. Yes, it's in England, not in India, but like, is that okay? Like, do we care about this? Not spending time. You can go to Pickering and learn how to be a monk.
You could. I don't think it matters. It's the congruency of the message that matters. And
right.
But I do.
So it's not the location; it's the misrepresentation.
But at the same time, he is totally, manipulating or kind of playing off all of our sort of what would the word be like?
Oh wow, India!
Yeah, like the romanticism of all of this.
Oh, Watford, UK. Where the hell is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's it's sort of that touching all our insecurities for this romanticized vision of enlightenment
spirituality. Right.
Yeah. All right.
And you actually asked how much it was. I believe you said it was a little over $7,000. They're going to cut you a deal for like 6,000 something.
Right.
That
what's
program,
$800 between friends?
Yeah. That first of all, it's insane to me that a monk or ex-monk where their whole shtick is like sort of the thrusting away of financial concerns is charging thousands of dollars for an online course, right? But second of all, they claim certain credentials that you would be given or access to credentials and access to associations with universities. That turned out to be a lie or an exaggeration as well. And
it turned out to be outright false. Not an exaggeration, outright false.
Go into that. So what were they advertising their course, and then what was the reality?
So the Jay Shetty Certification School, which is its formal name, is an online life coaching training program. It is not life coaching that you receive. You receive training to become a life coach yourself, right? So it's kind of, life coaching is this booming industry. It's kind of like, when people talk about the gold rush in California, right? Mm-hmm. The people who got the richest were not necessarily people mining for gold. There were people selling pickaxes to everyone who was part of the gold rush. And this is kind of that pickaxe type of strategy, right? We're going to capitalize on, again, the mainstreaming of mental health and people wanting to improve themselves, improve their well-being by training people to become life coaches. And we're going to charge them $7,000 to do so. So as part of the marketing, the Jay Shetty Certification School claimed that it was affiliated with 4 different universities in the UK and essentially said that by completing the Jay Shetty Certification School, it would put you on track to receive a master's degree at these universities. You would have to do a little bit more study there. So I contacted all the universities, very clear, very straightforwardly asked them, what is your affiliation with this program? What is the nature of the relationship? Can you explain it to me? Every single one of those universities, to a school, to an organization, all of them said, we have no idea what the Jay Shetty Certification School is. We have no idea why we are listed on their marketing materials, and we want our names taken off.
So he was just lying about this course. You pay $7,000. You think you're associated with some university. You're getting some training that might be relevant to some higher education. It's not relevant at all.
just to pause it on. I mean, that in a nutshell is so, to me, that's like all you need to know. Why, like, and this guy, again, it's like, wow, how does somebody, well, it's not the how, the fact that he was pushing all of this stuff and lying blatantly is to me is just like, wow, like, again, it's we're all human, we all have our issues or whatever, but it's particularly unpleasant when the guy is selling virtue and enlightenment and all that stuff.
So I think I'd have two comments. One is on the university affiliation. I'm very curious as to how Jay Shetty would respond, because it's a very risky strategy to say, hey, we are affiliated with the University of Toronto.
Yeah.
It's something that is very easy to check.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which is what he did.
So why lie about it?
Yeah.
Like lie about, so good lying.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's no such thing as good lying. But the right lies are those that someone can't really
falsify.
They can't expose. This one seemed to be so. Is there another side? Is there something that, so the journalist McDermott reached out to the university, but like, who exactly did he speak to? Did he talk to the right person? I know from working at U of T, it's a huge place. And if someone asks me about something, one, I don't represent the university, and I don't know 99.9% of what's going on other than in my own little political science silo.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious as to why lie about that, which is so easily exposed and so easily damaging. What would Shetty say in response?
Well, I think Jay Shetty is, I think they're trying to sue the Guardian or something to like retract the piece or something like that. He goes on to, we don't have to listen to the whole thing. Obviously we're not going to, but he goes on to explain more about it.
Okay.
And then since that, they've taken all that stuff off their marketing material.
Okay.
Yeah. So
like acknowledging.
Yeah. But not acknowledging, but just doing it secretly kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an admission of guilt.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like, it's so crazy. Like, yeah.
So the other thing I was wondering about is, okay, so the cost is $7,000 for the life coaching course.
To become a life coach.
Okay. So, $7,000 to be a life coach. If you went to the University of Toronto to get an MA in clinical psychology,
I don't think you can get that exactly, but
okay.
Whatever.
So a functional equivalent,
to be a therapist.
To be a therapist, you like the number $7,000 probably needs to be contextualized a bit. I'm wondering what's the market like. What? Yes, that it's an online course. You know, it probably feels expensive. Not something I would pay for, but. Is the $7,000 in and of itself wrong? CoffeeZilla, Voidzilla here says, you know, how dare this monk charge so much and behave in a capitalistic way? But, you know, if you went to a university, they'd also charge you a lot. And, you know, maybe there's all these back end costs about maintaining the site and paying for upgrade. I'm just wondering. I'm not engaging in a defense. I'm just wondering what's. Before we be too judgmental,
okay,
I just want to think through some of these critiques in a way that avoids us from being just morally like, oh, how dare you charge? But you know, a first year tuition at U of T is about, you know, $7,000+. Is that immoral? Maybe that's too high. Lots of people do say that's too high. Is Jay Shetty wrong for, you know, maybe this person pays $7,000 one time and is able to have a career that pays them $80,000 a year.
Sure.
None of that money goes back. There's no commission going back to Jay Shetty. It's just that one time $7,000 and then the life coaching career. What's the right number for Shetty to charge? What if he's charged $1,000? Is that still morally wrong? What would be, how do I think through this number?
It's not the number, it's the deceitfulness as to what you get out of it. That's what they're exposing, right?
Yes. So there is that. So let's just, okay. So that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not getting credit at these universities, that's a big lie. If that's true, big lie, huge problem. Yeah. I'm wondering, okay, but let's say that doesn't exist. And it's just the issue of this monk charging $7,000, but maybe you can't separate them out. I'm trying to separate them out. Is that number still wrong? Like, let's say all of his stuff is legit. Is still $7,000 for a life coaching course wrong? Or is it because the lies and exaggerations exist that the $7,000 are wrong? Or is it $7,000 in and of itself, even if everything else was legit?
I don't know. I don't think it really matters. What matters again is he's just the incongruency with his whole story and message. It's like, I was a monk. Now I'm a capitalist bastard who's fucking, raking in all this cash, and listen to me because I tout all these virtues of enlightenment. And again, yet I'm contradicting them all in my actions.
Right.
I think that's really
where it is. Okay.
Yeah. And again, the point being to reflect on oneself. Where are we incongruent with our speech and our actions, right? And the more congruent we get, the healthier we are.
Right.
Anyway, should we keep going?
Sure.
Or let's get into his plagiarism a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah. Maybe we'll listen to the end of the half truths here, and then let's.
As opposed to what the discrepancy there is. I mean, I don't know about Jay's involvement with the day-to-day operations of the school, but it is his name on it. I mean, it's quite clearly his brand. It's called the Jay Shetty Certification School. And they were making these claims about these academic affiliations that turned out to just be not true. I mean, flat false. I mean, if you read the article, we got an on-the-record comment from the communications officer from one of the schools. And he very clearly says, we're very unhappy that we are being included on these marketing materials, and we want our names taken off. They did not take the name off of that specific university. It's a University of Chichester. The school, the Jay Shetty School, didn't take its affiliation off its website initially, and only took it off after the University of Chichester sent a cease and desist from its attorneys.
Okay, so right, is this a Jay Shetty thing, or is this like the organization he's run that he's lost control of, and suddenly the manager? No, I'm just wondering. I'm just trying to like. So in defense of like. In the 1950s and 60s, during this great famine in China, apologists or defenders of Mao would say it actually wasn't Chinese policy that led to the famine. It was the fact that local governors and sort of bureaucrats in these different sort of Chinese villages that were struggling with food distribution and food production lied to their superiors, because if they didn't lie about the situation, they'd be fired or killed or whatever. Yeah. So. In that view, it wasn't the Chinese government's fault. It was the local leaders making these decisions fault for the famine, and nothing could be done as a result of their lying. That's one perspective. I'm not saying it's right or not. In Shetty's view, is this a Jay Shetty problem, or the fact that he's devolved power to these local managers who are not in any way motivated by true Eastern spirituality?
Sounds like a good excuse.
Yeah, this could be his defense. He's like, I actually didn't know that they were doing this. I don't run the business day to day.
Right. Well,
I'm just interested in coaching, and I'm just floating around as a monk. I hired this organization, this team to run the day to day, and they did a whole bunch of things, and they should be punished for their lies and exaggeration. This isn't a me thing.
Well, I think that just adds to his responsibility for the whole mess. He's the face of this. It's his job to make sure he's not hiring. But it makes sense, even if that was true, then it would make sense. If he's deceitful and full of shit, then he's going to hire people that are deceitful and full of shit. And it's more likely that ethos is spread in his organization.
But the counter would be the deceit is not coming from him. It's coming from a team he no longer controls or ever controlled.
Maybe. But rather than getting defensive and countersuing the Guardian, then he would say, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have let this happen. I'm going to do everything to rectify the deceitfulness of our coaching program. And I'm sorry. Like, he would take responsibility for it.
Like, I do wonder the extent to which Jay Shetty has been turned into this corporate entity that actually is no longer him. It's doing all these things as if it's an individual, but rather it's a
But he was always this way from the beginning. So that's the whole point. Like, he was always full of shit. He was always lying about his accomplishments. He was always posing as something that he wasn't. So it wasn't like it got away from him. It's like he planted the seeds of deception, and he cultivated them the whole way through.
Do you think he was being manipulated by by stronger, like Facebook? How does Facebook make money off of him? They create a narrative about Jay Shetty. So Jay Shetty doesn't create the narrative. Facebook does.
No, Facebook just promotes his own content. Facebook has no influence over the content in a sense.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what maybe he's a pawn in a larger.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
but
either way.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's go. We're gonna run out of time soon.
Sure.
Let's learn a bit about
plagiarism.
the plagiarism here.
Speaking of kind of hoping people don't ask, follow-up questions, let's talk about, or ask too many questions. Let's talk about the plagiarism accusations. So Jay, one of his first scandals after kind of breaking, mainstream attention, and I think he got a lot of criticism for this at the time, was him basically stealing people's quotes and then putting Jay Shetty under, like he would put their quote and he would just replace their name and just put Jay Shetty as if he thought of it or said it. And, he grew a following because he would have all these, pithy, interesting, self-helpy quotes. Of course, it was all stolen. He has since, his lawyers, I guess, spoke to you about that. They said, it was a learning experience. Is that right? I read from your article. But you found evidence that he's still doing stuff like this, or his team is, or whoever, runs his socials are. Can you go into that?
Yeah. He plagiarized pretty rampantly, pretty brazenly. And that was one of the first things I found in my investigations. And my thought at that point was that someone who is willing to so openly plagiarize is probably pretty unscrupulous in general, because there's no way you're not going to get caught, right? But to your point about that scandal, that scandal was pretty much self-contained to the online creator space. It was only other people such as yourself that really gave a shit. Mainstream media gave Jay a pass and continued to give Jay a pass for years. Either so many reporters wrote so many glowing profiles of Jay, and they either didn't bother to look into his past, because the plagiarism stuff publicly available for years. It's not that hard.
It came up immediately when I was looking into him.
Totally. All you have to do is Google Jay Shetty controversy and Nicole Arbour's video, and it comes up immediately. Or they knew about it and they thought it wasn't a big deal, which I find bizarre. But yeah, he continues to use other people's tweets, other people's Instagrams. And it's not like he's taking a screenshot of these posts and then posting a screenshot. He is repurposing them in his own format
to make it look like it's his original.
Right. With a tiny, he does attribute now, but I still think it's some murky ethical area to populate all of your social feeds with other people's content. Now, I contacted a lot of the people who had their content repurposed by Jay, and some of them were, a lot of them were perfectly fine with it. They were like, well, he credited me, and I'm, I guess I'm just old school. I would find it bizarre if someone did that, and somewhat of a violation. Jay does it. He didn't get permission from any of these people. He didn't compensate any of them for their original work. You're a creator. This stuff is hard work. It's hard to do something original. And that kind of disregard for other people's intellectual property is fascinating.
I think what you said earlier was true. Is with Jay, it's really about the collection of all the things that makes it kind of such a damning.
I think what puzzles me the most. Okay, so there's like the disturbing side of some of this behavior, and it's not something we want to do ourselves. We're very vulnerable to this kind of stuff. Jay Shetty's a human like us. We could lie, we could do, exaggerate. Of course we do. The other thing I'm puzzled by, some of this stuff doesn't make sense to me. Like, to so openly plagiarize, when a student in my class plagiarizes now, they try to hide it.
Yeah.
They try. Okay, so I was writing just like hypotheses. What would explain his behavior? Either he's stupid.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, someone's going to find you out. You're asking for a journalist to do a tiny bit of digging, and find like, oh, that wasn't your quote. It was actually John Kabat-Zinn. Okay, you're a fraud.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't your quote. Is from this academic article. Okay, you're a bullshit artist. Okay, so is he stupid? Another hypothesis is there's a lot of malice. He's like, I don't effing care. I'm just going to take this stuff, claim it as my own. My ego is so big that, I'm just going to, steal. So there's the malice hypothesis. There's a stupid hypothesis. There's the malice hypothesis. And then I don't know why this is coming back up, but the corporate pawn hypothesis, that he's being manipulated by someone. He's this like, has the right identity, right sort of features that allow someone behind him to make a ton of money off of him. And they'll just do all this stuff because they control certain informational channels. Maybe not all. He eventually might get exposed, but he had a long run. We'll make a ton of money off of this guy. We're going to do all this crazy stuff to pitch him as this guru. We're going to lie and exaggerate. No one's really going to catch us for, 10, 15 years. We're going to make millions, billions of dollars. And then some, maybe someone will catch us when we slip up and we go overboard a bit. But until then, we'll have banked all this money. Jay Shetty will take all the blame for it. His career will be destroyed. Meanwhile, those who are behind it making all of this money will never be exposed at all, and will just go on to promote the next, mental health celebrity influencer and do it all again. Is Jay Shetty stupid? Is he malicious? Or is he just a pawn of something larger that I can't understand? And are we sort of pointing at the wrong person here? Like, is Shetty, is he the victim? Is he the perpetrator? Some of this stuff sounds so ridiculous. Why would you be so open in your plagiarism? Why would you lie about universities? Were you like, is someone asking to destroy, like, are you asking to destroy your own life and career? I just don't get it.
Yeah, what do they say? Don't attribute to things that could just be explained by stupidity or ignorance. What's that saying? Like, don't make it a conspiracy when it simply can be explained as idiocy. Or
so that was my first step. Maybe it's just dumb. Yeah, it's just really stupid behavior, and the malice and the corporate pawn hypotheses are like separate. Others. Let me. But I don't know. Is this just stupidity?
Let me do some barfing on that for a minute. So one would be, I just to notice when things seem so simple, yet like, how could it be that simple? Like, how could he just be that selfish and stupid and arrogant? It can't be that. It must be some other, like,
nefarious plan. Someone's pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Which just like, maybe, but I think people are just too stupid. And
so you think Jay Shetty is...
Well, I just don't think that humans are not good at conspiring at big things and pulling off big things that aren't very clearly discernible, right? So that's number one. I would just say I resist so much of the conspiracy stuff. One, because I used to be a victim to it so much and the delusional, resentful conspiracy theory type of thinking. Not to say that obviously lots of conspiracy theories become true, but those are ones that are not so far-fetched. Like, there's lots of evidence as to why they're conspiracies. They're sort of more and more obvious to more and more people. And so that's different, in my opinion, than conjecture about possible outcomes. I hope that makes sense. And then the other piece to just, I guess it's partly my skill set in a sense, just to turn this back inward, right? So noticing how we are all capable of self-deception, self-grandiosity, arrogance. And as he just got more and more popular, he probably just didn't care. Or he just was so deluded by his own greatness that he didn't care.
I'm untouchable.
Yeah. Or just like, I'm just so good that I'll just take credit for this anyway. Right. Or like, I just think at some point the arrogance and the self-importance gets so big that you probably didn't even think about it so much, right? And maybe he's pressuring his social media people to come up with more and more content. And so they were stealing, but he still sees it's not like he's just like oblivious to the content that's being put out in his name. Like, he's not, obviously this guy's so full of himself that he would be like, following it along. So just the last point would be, remember, these are all human traits and characteristics and character flaws that we all have. Some of us more than others. It doesn't make it okay. And I think in some ways we need to be better at calling people out for this kind of stuff, but more in a responsible manner, as opposed to using the calling out, which I think you and I try to do our best to be careful about, to gratify our own egos.
Yeah, like how great we are. We would be vulnerable to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Two quick points I would make is so you said he probably sees all this stuff going out on social media, this quote from this person not being him. I wonder again. I'm going to be the conspiracy theorist. Normally I'm not, but this something is. I would love to learn more about this. He might see it and he's like, I really wish I owned this content under my name and that I hadn't signed that contract, giving away all rights to, control what's associated with me. Mm-hmm. He may have signed a huge deal with someone saying, okay, we pay you X millions of dollars. And what that gives you is our right to put Jay Shetty behind anything we want, to construct our own person, our own individual that's going to be as profitable for us as possible. You have no creative control anymore because we're giving you this much money. I do wonder. I wondered about how much he's actually controlling the situation and what that contract might have looked like that he might have signed with whoever we don't even know. The second thing is, okay, let's say that's not a plausible hypothesis. The other is he did have a lot of control. What kind of pressure was he under? He probably lied about one thing. So in that alternative perspective, he lied about one thing and he's like, oh boy, I got to start doubling down on all these lies because I had to, continue to be as impressive to all these audiences that I'm impressing. I have to keep going. You can't keep saying the same thing over and over again. You have to keep innovating. You have to keep coming up with these great quotes. I don't have any more insights. I've learned all this stuff in Watford and in India, but I got nothing else because to be totally honest, mental health isn't crazy complicated. There's only a few core insights, and what else are we going to talk about? He's like, well, I got to get content from somewhere, and I'm under all this pressure from the people I work for, from my clients, to keep innovating and to keep having new pithy quotes that they can wake up to. Maybe the victim is always someone that the perpetrator is always someone that we can demonize. I'm wondering about the larger context in which he's operating, whether it's corporate pressure from whoever or sociological, psychological pressure created from those lies, and just he got himself caught in a situation he couldn't get out of, and he had to continue to double down and do crazier and crazier exaggerations with affiliating with universities to open plagiarism, which is bad strategy. Like anyone saying like, don't lie about those things if you're doing well. Why? Yeah. I don't know. There's some fishy things here, and I'm wondering why. The larger question of why this happened, why he did what he did, seems to be unexplained. Other than he's maybe just a bad guy. I mean, that's always
and making plausible. Lots of money.
And he got stuck, and he gets stuck. And
I think maybe one last point on that is our collective responsibility to tame our desire for simple answers and solutions and to glorify celebrities with simple messages. Yeah. We're all complicit in that. So that's what I would say is like outside of the personal responsibility of, maybe it's all personal and turns into collective, but what is it about me that wants to believe my own lies? What is it about me that wants to believe other people's lies? Why do we all seek quick, simple sound bites to solve difficult problems? And what is it about us that's also scared to call out other people's bullshit too? So that's some people aren't scared of it at all. So there's that too, right? We all have a sort of collective vulnerability to simple narratives and to grandiose good outcomes. And we need to remember it's never so simple.
So is that a defense of this complex conspiracy theory that?
Yeah, perhaps.
So we're going back and forth. This is the beauty of this conversation is like we have no vested interest in any one perspective. We're just trying to figure out.
I do have a vested interest in guiding myself and hopefully other people towards just being a bit more honest.
Yes.
A bit more ethical, a little bit more integrity.
Yes.
To start smelling our own bullshit a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'm on board with that vested interest, of course, but no vested interest in exposing Jay Shetty. Like more like we want to pursue truth.
Yes.
As we see it to the best of our ability. We're never going to maybe fully find it.
Yeah.
Because we're humans. But yes, we're open to different explanations, different angles and context and hypotheses to make sense of what's gone on here.
Yeah.
But I really, last thing I'll say, and Mike, if you want to close, is I do love that reminder of trying not to deceive yourself. It's actually a harder way to live. Like whenever I'm not honest, you can hurt relationships. You can just be a way worse person. Sometimes just admitting that you're not all that great is such an easier way to live. Like, I'm just a flawed, struggling screwed up human who tries their best but often doesn't do well with things. That's probably an easier way to live.
Yes,
just by saying those and then trying to be better.
Yes,
not sitting there, not saying, "Oh, I'm just fucked up, so I'm just going to continue to be fucked up."
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
right.
As long as it's not an excuse not to act differently.
But humility this is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Humility is actually such a just saying you're sort of like I find that very powerful for me. It takes the pressure off.
As long
and not pumping when it's tired.
Yeah. As long as again, it's not sort of an avoidance strategy, right? Or let me off the hook, or look at me, I'm so special, I can engage in self-deprecation. Like it's like there's always a subtlety to it. But that would just be one of the insights that I find helpful. And thanks, David.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for listening. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
Comment, send us questions, or get in touch about possible topics.
Yep.
And we hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. Take it easy. I am very grateful that you watched to the end of this video. Please click one of the boxes to watch more of our content, and otherwise have a great day. Peace out.